This was a gathering of some Compton family members on May 6, 2023. We were at Terry's place in Murray. On the back left is Larita Compton Johnston, Rachel Barney Smith, Merribeth Barney Fowers, Kent Fowers, Cynthia Compton, Marcielle Compton Barney, Nancy Compton Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Elle, Chad's daughter, and Chad. And then in front is me, Arden Compton. In front of me is my daughter Cori. To my side is my wife Cheryl. And to the side of her is Amber. And then Annette and Terry and Lynn is in the very front. We had a pleasant day of chatting and visiting and sharing family memories.
I do number 12.
Congratulations.
Yep, 12 grandchildren.
Oh, and you're number 12.
And I'm number 12, and I think we're done. I don't think anybody's having any more.
Something significant.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think they're all done. Yeah, I don't think there's
No,
any
they're
more.
not all done. They're just
No, that's
finished.
true. They're not, but I think
They are done.
they have yeah.
No, they're not all done either.
This is an old family joke. This goes back, since these two were born, or he and Alden were named Alden and Arden, it was the way Dad always introduced the family in his talks in church. Alden and then Arden.
We're all done.
My mother
and
didn't
now we
like
are
that.
done.
She didn't, did
Little
she?
joke, no.
No, but it was okay. It was all good.
But when I went on
Yeah,
my
it
mission
did.
to North
So-
Carolina, people knew the story.
And then I was
Yes.
born, and that just messed up the whole system.
Yes, I mean, I,
Where did you come from? You weren't supposed to come.
I know that.
You just snuck in there.
What did your
Lucky
dad?
me.
no, but I just,
What did your dad
I
want?
just-
One at a time.
What did your
One at a
dad want to
time.
name you?
I
I-
was named Elizabeth short for a brief moment, I understand.
He wanted to name you Caboose.
Oh, well, that might be true. I wouldn't be
And your
surprised.
mother would
I
not
never
allow
heard
it.
that. I've never heard that
You
before.
haven't heard that?
No, no.
Have you
I
heard
only
that?
the only
Yeah.
name I've heard about me is that my name was Elizabeth till Larita Aldridge came to see Mom,
Well, learn to spell
and then my
Caboose.
name was changed to
Well,
Larita.
then you would have just been called either Goose or Cab.
Cuh. You could have called me Cuh.
Maybe Goosey.
I'm Larita, thank goodness. I have 4 children, if you want to know. One is in Utah, one boy in Utah. He has 3, of course. They all have 3. That's all everybody did 3 in a row. Yeah, the girls both live in Vegas, and their children are all like 3 months apart, and they both have 3. They're
Whose children are
Mine.
3 months apart? Who has
my
children
2
3
daughters had their children all 3 months apart. So Jessica had a girl, then Alicia had a girl, then Alicia had a boy, then Jessica had a boy, and then they both just did it 3 months apart, all the way until this last one.
Intentionally, of course.
They called each other up on the
I think actually there was some intention at the
How
beginning.
that was planned.
They did talk about that.
So Alicia had another boy,
She did. She had another boy.
and everything was okay.
Yeah, everything went really well. No heart defects, no problems like that. And Ollie's doing really well. Ollie is really thriving. He's a miracle. They say he shouldn't be so healthy.
So
He
Ollie is her grandson that had what?
He had a aortic.
Aorta.
He had 2 aortas, or 2, and I'm not saying that right. He had 2. Well,
He had
anyway,
2
he had
hearts.
things wrong, and they had to go in and fix his heart a month after he was born.
Little tiny.
Yeah, when he was a month old, they had to go in and. What was it called? Oh my! I can't believe I can't. Anyway, then she decided after going through this experience that she would start a nonprofit to help take care of families who are having to learn how to navigate the NICU and all the systems. And so as soon as their babies are diagnosed with a heart defect, their names are given to her and this other group of ladies, and they go out and reach out to the family, or the family can reach out to them. They've helped people get babies back to Israel. They've taken care of people and helped them find places to live and get food, and because people have to come from all over to this heart surgeon. And so she's often fundraising and looking for ways to have the money she needs. And I thought, I don't know a 25-year-old that starts nonprofits like this and
But
just.
I would like to explain that part of this responsibility that she's taken taken on includes public speaking. And
Jaye wants to take some responsibility for that.
no, I mean, that's not. I'm taking credit. I was her public speaking
you were.
I was her professor in college.
He was. He taught her
I
public
trained
speaking.
her how to do these kinds of things.
And I do think it was very helpful. It really was. She is very.
I was just kidding, but
No,
if
it's
you're
true.
gonna- if
She's
you're gonna
very
get
well.
serious.
She's really good about it. She was really shy when she was little. She was really shy, but she got over that. She decided not. Anyway, I'm getting lost. Then there's one in Virginia.
Kevin was not shy.
Kevin has never been shy. Kevin has never been shy. He just finished a stint at the White House. He was at the White House for a year, working. If you ever heard anything of the president's AI agenda that's out there right now, Kevin was the research guy behind a good portion of that AI stuff. So
Oh, silence all your phones.
he has 3 children, and he's got 3, and he's now back to the Department of Education. So that's my family, and my husband works at the hospital, and that's why he's not here. If we come to Salt Lake, he doesn't get to come if he's on call. And he's been at the hospital since 7 o'clock this morning doing cases. So
What did he do?
he works in a heart cath lab. So if somebody has a heart attack, he's the guy there putting the stents in, helping the doctor put the stents in.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's been there almost 30 years. He's worked at the hospital.
Your
Well, yeah,
girls
that's
paying
all,
attention?
Yeah, it's all the same. All the,
Whether they need stents or not.
yeah. Yeah.
So what's Robert doing?
Robert's company is still in the works. He started a medical device, and I don't understand it completely, which I really should, but I don't. But basically this medical, I don't know. It goes on your chest, but the goal is that it's going to do, well, I know it does vital signs, except for, I think, blood pressure right now. That's the most complicated part of the device, but it's Bluetooth. So like Lifeline, ICUs, it's documenting, it's going right now just to hospitals and doctors' offices. That's all it's for. And he travels all over the country with this device, trying, and I know that it's in some hospitals back east. I think there's a hospital in Boston that has it. And anyway, he has specifically made it for the hospital's medical device.
So he doesn't have his,
DNP?
yeah,
Yeah, he's still a DNP, but he's not working as a DNP right
it's not working.
What is DMP?
now. A doctor of nurse practitioner.
Oh.
So he's a nurse, but he's a doctorate with a nurse, and that makes it, but he got his practitioner license.
You gotta be
So,
schizophrenic to do that.
I
You
swear.
have to be a nurse and a doctor at the
Yeah.
same time.
He did for a while, he did orthopedic surgery for a while with a couple of orthopedic surgeons. He did hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulders. He did that for about 5 years before he could go off on his own business.
Cool.
Did you know all of this, Terry?
That's fun to see you.
Can I hug you?
That time.
Yes, you hugged me already.
Story about Chad.
Tell her not to.
What is your story? Apparently, Larita wants to tell a story about Chad.
What?
I'm sitting here.
And we gotta.
Quiet.
Well, good for him.
Come on, you can't go that far without going away.
So when Chad was what?
Terry's calling you.
Yeah, listen to your older
First issue you
brother.
have to settle, are there any good stories about Chad?
Well, this one's pretty good.
Really?
Then the second thing we have to settle is, what does good mean?
Chad has become famous at the White House. Well, amongst those that Kevin associates with. Kevin took him on a tour of the executive wing when he was out there. And
This was in the Eisenhower.
this was in the, well, that's kind of it. Oh, that's true. You're right. It was in the Eisenhower building, which is where Kevin's office is, which, anyway.
Is that part of the White House?
Yeah, kinda. They're right there. Kevin's office looked at the White House from that building. It's right next to it.
Oh, okay.
It's about what?
50 steps away.
Oh, no, it's not very far away.
It was the Pentagon during World War II.
Oh, was that? Oh, I remember that. That's right. It was, wasn't it?
And now it's a bunch of.
Well, just so you all know how much Chad is like Dad. everywhere Kevin took Chad, he had to remind him he couldn't just go wherever he wanted. You had to keep pulling him back so he wouldn't get into trouble.
Is that what
Because
you
you
said?
are dealing with the Secret Service and you can't just go anywhere you want. So Kevin takes him to the vice president's media room where she does all of her news broadcasts. And Chad just decides he's gonna go sit in her chair. And there's all these cameras. And he's like,
I saw him on the news, actually.
That's right. Kevin was like, Chad, come back. Even his boss knew that Chad had pushed all the boundaries.
So then what happened? He sat in a chair, and then what happened?
Tell nothing. You know, Kevin pulled him out of the chair, said, you gotta get out of
Are
that
you
chair.
going to tell the second half?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So they go to the West Wing, and
But
Which is where the president's Oval Office
yeah,
is.
I'm thoroughly enjoying this, and all of a sudden I hear Jacob say to Kevin, you know, usually when I go on tours, I worry about where little kids are going, but I think I worry more about Chad. So I turn around and I look at Kevin, and I haven't seen Kevin look stressed very often, but he was so stressed. And then I looked and I thought, where's Chad? No, I don't see Chad anywhere.
You know, he does this in slow motion. He wanders off in slow motion so you don't
He does.
notice it.
But here's the other story. The preceding story was.
did you ever find him though?
Yes, he's here.
We went
Are
to
we
the
sure?
Capitol once, and they had this, you know, those metal poles with velvet ropes on a hallway.
Where
and
you going, Chad?
Chad says, I wonder where that goes. And I was like, I don't, because I'm the oldest daughter, and have been raised to not break rules. And so I said, oh, Chad, I don't think they want us to go there. And he's like, I'm a taxpayer. This is my money. So he heads down there. I remember you walking down it. And then I remember you walking back, and I
Is that
thought there were
true?
people with Uzis.
No,
there
I was
weren't
not
people with Uzis.
escorted out.
I just have a quick in-law question. Was this January 6th by any chance?
No, he's still at large.
No ideology, but later, but the truth is, he also did this with the Tabernacle Choir. This is.
Yes, he did. I thought about that the other day.
We can
I
stop
thought
now.
about that the other day, and you and this little
Chad, I'm
excursion of
exactly the same. If there's a velvet rope across a hallway
Oh, look,
or.
Jay's
Even
raising
if
his
you're dealing
hand.
with the Secret Service.
Or-
You are not the oldest
chair.
daughter of the oldest daughter.
No, and I walk against red lights and I jaywalk and,
You're
you know,
so-
it's like
And
whatever's
you-
most convenient.
And you run red lights?
No.
Yeah,
Well,
you're there in the back.
Unless it's just barely.
The little boy over in the corner has something to say.
From Jewel.
So, yeah,
From
you
Joab.
So I think I know the origins of this kind of behavior.
It's dad, isn't it?
It goes to South Carolina.
Oh.
And this was one of the first times that Chad acted out in this fashion. So we went to a
Hey,
family
hey,
home.
you guys are talking in front of my daughter.
I
You do not want to stain me permanently.
And if I were Chad, I'd say, like, you know I'm here, right? You're talking, you know I'm here.
You know I can hear you, right?
Oh, is Chad here?
He's providing entertainment.
I
We
started.
went to the Graham house, the Graham family.
Which Graham? There's multiple
The
Grahams.
Graham
There was a
family?
Graham family that lived on a lake.
Okay,
And they had a rambler house.
yeah.
And one of the kids that lived there was, what was his first name? Anyway, he was my best friend. So I had spent the night there a couple of times.
How
And
old are
our
you?
family, well, I was 6 or 7.
You spent the night with the Grahams?
Yes, more than once.
What was the
And
occasion?
Jimmy Graham was my boyfriend. He called me all
What?
the time.
Oh, Andrew Graham.
Jay called you or Jimmy did?
Jimmy.
Andrew Graham was my age, and he was my friend. So I was able to go there and spend the night there because we played together. So the family went there for an occasion. Seems like it was a big barbecue or something. May even have been a ward event.
We had
Somebody
homemade
put the
ice
car
cream
in
with peaches.
neutral and guess what happened?
And so Chad was left, either he got in the car or he was left in the car.
Wait, he's
and
about
then
how old now?
Two, three.
You were born.
I've never heard this story.
He was maybe three.
Two
or three.
Was
Okay.
Chad-
Oh, I know this
The car
story,
was on
maybe.
the driveway that was sloped
I
down
think I
toward the
heard this
lake.
before.
And Chad was either left in the car or he got in the car and played with the gear shift lever and got it into neutral and down the hill.
You remember that, Chad?
I've never
But-
heard
but
I've
what
never
I-
heard this story.
What I don't
Into the
remember-
lake or
what I don't
downhill
Did it
remember
go? Did it go in the lake?
is
It did not go in the lake.
It didn't go in the lake, so I don't
He hit a
remember
tree.
the
A
end
tree
of the
stopped
story.
it.
I don't
A tree
remember.
stopped
the-
it.
Tree stopped it, Nancy says.
That's because I stepped on the brake.
Did you climb down there and push really hard?
You would have had to crawl on the floor at your age.
No, it either bumped into a tree or something. I think it bumped into a tree. It wasn't going fast, of course. But,
No, the people were trying to stop it. But
yeah, well, anyway, I've
Yep.
got that curiosity that,
Yeah.
that's
That happens
his,
more than once in a
it's his
while.
trademark.
That's why I love Pippi Longstockings. You remember Pippi Longstockings? Nobody here?
Was she a neighbor?
Of course I remember Piggy.
She was like, she was my favorite, and she would have done all these things.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Well-
Ramona.
But I never got thrown in jail because of it, these things.
What were you thrown in jail for?
I was, but it wasn't because I did a bad thing. But the Eisenhower building, I mean, I really enjoyed the West Wing a lot, and I was surprised how I felt when I went
It
in
was
there.
really pretty cool, isn't it?
It's
White
almost
House.
reverential,
Yeah.
given, the
Yeah.
history and what's going.
Pretty
But
cool.
that Eisenhower building was so interesting. I stood there at the, there's a door and it says National Security Agency. And they're that whole side of the building, Kevin told me. And you, I don't think you can go through the door no matter what, but I would have been willing to sit there and wait for somebody to come out or go in.
And followed them back in.
I don't know how far you could get on that
just
one. I don't think very far.
My job.
And straight across the hall was the president's, what do they call that, where the lawyers are, the president's lawyer? What's he?
Oh,
Legal counsel?
Yeah, the White House Legal Counsel.
Uh,
It's just
The
full
Justice
of
Department.
interesting people, and we walked, when we were walking over, by the way, Kevin is an A+ super tour guide. I mean, he really has it down.
his boss, has come from MIT, wanted to go on one of his tours because she'd heard how good his tours were. So when we went, Bryce and I, she came along just for the reason of wanting to hear Kevin's tour, because she'd heard
He just has
just
the lines
how
down,
good he
he's
is at giving
funny,
those
he's
tours.
Informative.
It's the best historical tour we've been on, and we have been on.
Yeah, plenty. Yeah, he really does a good job.
It was amazing.
Anyway, I was going to say something. I
I'm
don't
sorry,
remember
I
what
interrupted. I apologize. You were just talking about the feeling.
Oh yeah, no, we bumped into the director of. Was he the Joint Chiefs of Staff? No. It was Defense, right. Secretary of Defense, who was right there at the White House. When we were, it's kind of a happening place.
Yeah, well, that's true. Okay, here's the other cool. Here's something else though. Kevin is still true to Dad. He wants to honor his grandfather. So when we went to church with him, he wore Dad's purple and white suit coat from the 70s. The bishop, they meet in a building, so you have to take the elevator
The
up
one
to.
that I passed on to
Yes,
him.
you did actually. Thank you. Anyway, he wears this to church all the time, and the bishop got in and he goes, "You know, Kevin, I just am really impressed with your suit coats." And I was telling him it was from my dad in the 70s. But the other thing is, he never wears a normal suit coat. He's always got somewhat of a flamboyant suit coat on. And every time he was around the president would come up and shakes Kevin's hand and say, "I love your suit coat."
That's the way to do it.
He met the president many times because of his suit coat.
Oh, there you go. And he's got pictures to prove it.
I do. I even have some pictures of it. That's true.
it was midnight and he had a flight out of the Washington DC airport.
What did I say? I don't know. I answered
Yep.
it.
And you were how old?
You took him?
I was probably 17, maybe.
So you're dropping Dad off at an
So he
airport.
wants me to drop him off. We get down to Washington DC and he wants to hurry because he's late, because he's always late. And there's all these one-way roads going the wrong way on this road and the wrong way. I'm supposed to figure out how to get back without doing the same thing. We're going the wrong way on all these roads to get to the airport. And I said, Dad, he says, nobody's
There's only
coming.
one pig
Yeah, but what
that I
if a
guess we
policeman
can get
comes?
this time around.
It's just fine.
We can get
Just
one,
relax.
we can get
And
the next one.
I had a difficult time finding my way back
First
home. And Mother was so mad at him. You're gonna take her down to Washington DC all by yourself?
Not exactly a safe neighborhood.
No, not exactly.
So we're getting.
So, and he would do that when we go to church and we were in,
We're getting a really good deal.
Silver Spring.
Let's just say that.
College Park. When we were in College Park, and the road was coming this way to the church, and then there was this island, or anyway, he would always go out the wrong way and go down the wrong way on the road, so that he was facing the traffic.
Look at the shock and the surprise.
doubly impaired because my dad had to cheat just to win games, and Grandpa followed no rules. Your dad. So
He definitely challenged the rules.
extremely challenging.
That was his thing. Good thing none of us are
Your
like
dad
that.
cheated?
My dad loved to cheat.
In chess?
We
He thought
were
it was
all
funny.
very
He
competitive.
thought it was funny.
He cheated at Clue, he cheated at
He never really
Monopoly.
cheated. They just always accused him of it.
Oh, you don't know that.
He
Yes.
was accused every game, every time he played.
It was just that
That was
Where there's
always.
smoke.
Yeah, my
So
kids
was
accuse
part
me
of
of
the
cheating.
game was for you to catch
He
him?
cheated at what?
Was part of the goal was for you to catch him cheating?
But they never caught him.
When he got caught, he
That
was
sounds
just
like
sit
a
there
great
and just
essay.
laugh.
Right on.
And do it anyway.
Don't listen to Ken.
I absolutely. He was being funny. I saw it.
Well, the golf thing, I think you're accurate on
Yeah,
that one.
we actually
Well,
saw
that
all
was
of
just.
The mulligans and the throw it back on the course.
When
that-
I grew
that
up
was-
playing basketball with my dad and my brothers, and it was scratch, fight, push, elbow. Kent actually got really into it too. He's the worst.
It was
That's
fun.
so
back
righteous.
Yeah, that's how you play the game.
Mild mannered.
So Terry, I want to know if you remember the trip from South Carolina to Palmyra, and what your memories are with the scouts and with
Yeah,
Dad.
I have parts of it that I remember,
So what do
but
you remember?
of course I don't remember every little thing.
Right.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you at that time?
Well, I was probably 16 or 17 in that neighborhood. I don't think I was 18 yet, but maybe I was. We took with us the scouts that was up to the explorers, otherwise I wouldn't have been there. So it was really young men, not scouts. And we took with us a Robert Bone. And I don't know, any of you know what's happened to Robert Bone in the intervening years, but he became a stake president. Before they released him as stake president, or maybe it was about that time, they had him training other stake presidents for them. And Robert was a well-respected guy. But Robert was a little wild when he was young. And so he would whistle at the girls as we drive around, and Dad would get after him about whistling at the girls. And it's kind of interesting that Dad took the position he did. Not that he shouldn't have gotten after Robert, but he was kind of disciplinary with Robert Bone. Anyway, we did go there. We had a good time, is what I remember. Unfortunately, I can't remember that much about the pageant that we went to. But we did go to the
Do you
Hilcomore
remember hearing
pageant.
about staying on the White House lawn or on that mall lawn or something? Isn't that where Dad took the scouts and talked the policemen into letting the scouts sleep on the mall there? I've always heard this story about
Yeah.
Dad. Yeah, Nancy agrees. I've always heard this story.
I'm not aware that we went
when-
to Washington DC.
Yeah, you did. When we,
I heard the story, so I don't know. I can't confirm it.
so when we were in Cove Fort, there were some missionaries that lived below us, Anyway.
Near
Right
you?
by you.
Yeah, they were below us. And they were.
You lived upstairs. I was thinking you
Well, we switched apartments and I was trying
You're
to.
kind of being higher than high and mighty, or just never
Yeah,
mind. Never,
well,
okay.
it was just a better apartment
Bad
upstairs.
joke. Move on.
Anyway, he remembered you from South Carolina. They had a visitor that came from South Carolina.
And your dad.
And he remembered Dad. As soon as he heard that I was related to the Comptons, I mean, that was it. He had to talk to me. He had to share with me this story. And he said that you guys had to work all summer long to make enough money to go to Palmyra.
Was this a jamboree, scout jamboree?
No,
No, they went to the Palmyra
it was
pageant.
just, it was
This is
just to
strictly
the
young men
pageant.
in the
They-
church.
Yeah,
just
and
went
he
to the
said
Palmyra
we
pageant.
worked hard and we saved our money, and that Dad had the fastest car. And he was really sad he didn't get to ride with Dad. And you know how Dad would do to stay awake? He would swerve back and forth on the road. He would sing.
Sing and
99
beat his
bottles-
chest and-
99 bottles of root beer.
Sit
on
back.
the
Bags of
wall.
ice
Side
on the front
carpet
seat of
and
the
reach across
car.
to drive it up. What do you do about the gas when you did that?
How did we all
99
survive that?
bottles of root beer on the wall.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and
You don't remember Dad? Artie, you do.
It's not root beer on the wall.
Well-
It's 99 holes in the bottom of the sea.
There's a frog and a bump on the log and
No,
bottom of
don't
the
even.
sea.
No, don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Grandpa used to sing that all the time.
Another in-law interjection. You can help me with this.
Okay.
Is this the same trip where your dad was pulled over by a policeman?
No.
Because a woman called about a naked drunk man driving down the road with a handkerchief on tied around his face. His shirt was
that's
off.
a different
A different story. Right?
Not that one. That was two or three of them.
He didn't do that with Boy Scouts in the car. Some other time.
Just as kids, right?
He said, put it past him. He said it was about midnight when they finally got to DC, and didn't have the money to stay in a hotel, or
We camped out as far as I
Yeah.
remember.
But the
And you-
camp out was supposedly.
so Dad had the boys set up on
Only he
the
would do this.
lawn of the mall,
I
mall
don't
lawn.
know.
You don't remember that? And a
That
policeman
is
came up
bad.
and said, "You can't do this. You can't camp here." And Dad said, "These boys have been working all summer long, and they don't have the money to stay in a motel. And we promise we'll get out of here by 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'll have it all cleaned up." And the guy let him do it.
So how long did it take him to switch to salesman?
Well, that was the sales pitch. That was it.
Anyway, and he said they went to the pageant and they had a wonderful time, but he said, as a young man, I thought Berkeley Compton is the best scout leader in the world. And when I grow up, I want to be a scout leader just like Berkeley Compton. And he became a scout leader. I wish I could remember his name because you would remember him.
He's
Well, I'll
a
tell you
national
this,
scout.
the best calling I ever had in the church was as a scoutmaster. And that those boys back there, they're grown men now, and
Right. Well, they're beyond that.
they still will call me scoutmaster if I go there
Oh, really?
after all these years. But
I wish I could remember his name.
I gained a little bit of, they respected me because of, we trained him for several months. And I had as assistant scoutmaster I think he was a colonel in the military, I'm not sure. But he was an officer. And another one was captain, he was an officer, but he was a dentist, and he practiced dentistry in the military. And he turned out to be an old friend of mine that I made in Spokane, Washington. And so we both ended up in Columbia, South Carolina. We were friends and did things, his wife and him and me and my wife and my kids and everything. We did things together. But anyway, he was another assistant scoutmaster. So I had some real good assistants. And so we trained these boys on.
Where was this? Where are you
Huh?
talking? Where was this?
It was
South
in
Carolina?
Columbia, South Carolina.
And how old were you when you were scoutmaster? Oh, you were married?
Yes, I was married,
He
and
lived there while he was going to college, so he lived
That's
there
right,
for quite a
okay.
while.
Oh, I didn't realize you were there a while.
anyway, so we train these boys on survival hiking, being able to go out in the wilderness and take care of yourself for a period of time. And so after we train them for a couple of months, and of course you ask the boys, how many of you can do this? And every hand goes up, no matter what you ask them. They all can do everything that you ask them to do. And so we took them out, and I told them when I let them out, I says, now, we're not gonna help you one little bit. You're gonna make your own fire, you're gonna put up your own tent, you're gonna do everything on your own, and I'm not gonna help you. And if you don't get anything to eat, that's your problem, not mine. So anyway, the boys were reticent to eat frog's legs, which is one of the things that I ate, was
Did
frog
Dad like
legs.
frog legs?
Huh?
Somehow I have a memory of Dad liking frog legs.
Apparently tasted like chicken.
Is that
Very.
true?
Well, Dad
Does
wasn't-
anybody ever remember Dad eating
Yeah,
frog
I
legs?
think he
You do?
did.
Oh, I ate them
I
a
do.
lot.
Do you?
I ate them a lot, I don't know about you.
Oh, I just had this memory that Dad
No,
really
I
liked
think-
frog legs. I
think
never had.
Dad did like those, but anyway, I couldn't get the boys to eat the frog legs, although I wasn't supposed to be, talking them into it. And so I had frog legs and I had strawberry leaves. In case any of you don't know, there's a lot of wild strawberries in South Carolina. And even if the berry isn't ripe, you can eat the leaves. And then also they have wild grapes. You can pick the leaves off of the grapevines, and if you boil them, they're okay to eat. If you don't boil them, they'll give you diarrhea. It won't make you feel good. But anyway, then there were some other things that we trained them. There's sassafras roots. Any of you know about sassafras roots?
I remember sassafras roots and dry ice and root beer.
Yeah, so you can boil a little water and clean up the roots and put them in the pot and boil them until it makes a good drink. But the boys didn't do any of these things. First thing they got out of the car, they were off playing games. And so they burned up all their energy in, half an hour or an hour. And so then they came around asking for food, and I just told them, no, the agreement was you're not gonna get any food on this camp out. You have to wait till you get home. And they weren't too happy about that.
Good practice.
Anyway,
You're a hard taskmaster.
I did not let them have any of my food that I had for Ben, who was just three or four. I used to carry him on my shoulders all the time when we go hiking. And so he was just somebody I carried along with me. I didn't help anybody build a fire or do anything.
Wow.
So by the next morning, they were really zonked.
They were really hungry if they didn't
And they
have
were
any
really
food.
hungry, so I drove them home, and each one of them, as I let them out in the car, and they went in crying to their parents.
Weren't they supposed to bring food?
No, they can't bring
It was a
food.
survival.
No, it
camp.
was a survival.
Oh, you had to eat off the land, the
Yes,
plants.
you were allowed to bring a knife and a
Oh,
rope. You can have a knife and a rope, and if you knew how to use it, then you could make a trap with a knife and a rope, and get you a rabbit or get you something that would give you something to eat. So we trained them on all that. They raised their hand, I know how to do it, I know how to do it.
Merribeth,
But that's, anyway, a lot of them went into their houses crying when I let them out of the car. So it was only a week or two later that I got released as scoutmaster.
It was an early experiment in intermittent fasting.
Yeah. I did that this morning and I'm fine. Somehow I survived that.
You didn't
Amazing
go
how it
run and
works.
play games and run all your energy out, did you?
No, I want you to know that if you intermittent fast, you can do this.
That's right.
For how long?
How long do you have to fast before you can do that?
You can do it fast.
I'll have you know that I have to do that all the time to get up out of
Yay,
bed.
Chad! You didn't get your legs quite straight.
My legs won't go up.
Look at Marie.
You
Come on,
just-
Lorena, get your legs up.
You need,
Legs up, Lorena.
if you had Jay's legs, you could do it,
I
Chad.
got Charlie horses in my, I worked out Oh, Charlie horses in the cab. That's the only part that got me was the Charlie horses.
Anyway, the fellow under that is they called me to be on the high council after they released me as scoutmaster.
So you
They
got
thought I
raised.
could do less damage as high counselor than as scoutmaster.
And
So
did you?
we went, our family one time.
Didn't we do
Yeah,
that when we lived in
I remember-
Virginia?
I'm trying to remember when we went.
I know when you went.
It seems like we live
I
in
have a
Virginia.
memory that this happened.
I drove
Was I
out
alive?
there.
If she was alive, I was
From
alive.
Portland, Oregon to all the way to DC.
I remember when you came out there, we lived in Spencerville.
Yes.
So I do remember this then.
And
I don't remember this.
was the only driver.
vague.
I drove all the way.
Yeah.
Is that when there were no windows in the car?
No windows?
No windows in the car. What kind of a car was
One
that?
night, and the rest of the time, I couldn't tell what was down or up. I was not safe in that car, and I got there and we all piled in the car and Dad turned the wheel over to me. And I just got there. And I drove us to Palmyra.
And you
Did
know
you
what?
drive the whole family?
You know what else happened?
We probably
My
had a
friends,
wreck that I
no,
forgot
my
about.
friends and I wanted to go also, but we were working. So Dad let us use the car that he had bought from the Secret Service.
Yeah, I remember.
Ooh, that was
You
a
remember
nice
that
car.
car?
Does Kevin know about this?
He might be worried about it if you let him know.
And we were driving, we drove all night.
Was it those checker?
It was
No,
the-
no, no, it was a
an
black-
Oldsmobile
it was-
98, and it had bulletproof glass and a super souped up engine, and that thing would just flat out fly. That was a great car.
Yeah, and we would have to stop and get gas.
Hmm?
And that was before you had
I don't
window,
remember it.
had buttons to
That's
roll
not-
down your
I wouldn't
windows
care.
and buttons for your
Doors.
mirrors on the side or buttons for your doors. I mean, there were so
Well,
many.
that was high tech back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously,
There were so many
high-tech.
buttons in that car, and we would turn on the windshield, everything but roll down the window when we had stopped to get gas. We just knew somebody would think we had stolen that car. But it was Pat McDaniel and I and Barb, and I think it was Chris Stevenson that we drove all the way to Palmyra together in that car. Took turns driving and.
I'm getting a little confused. Are these trips,
Separate trips.
these are separate trips?
The family went and we met you guys at Palmyra.
And we lived where at the
Who's
time?
we?
No, no,
Who's
no.
we? You and Dennis?
No,
Who's we?
no.
Oh,
Pat McDaniel and
Your
Chris
friends.
Stevens, my friends, Chris
Met the
Stevens
family.
This
and
would have
Barbara
been-
oh,
Stevens.
I get it.
This would have been in the mid-60s.
Okay,
All right,
so
all
is
right,
this,
There are multiple trips, not to Washington, but there were a trip that Dad took
one's
the
Barney
youth
too.
from Spokane to Cardston, Alberta, Canada, to the temple. Well, I was only 14 or 15 then too, so you didn't know Dennis then, I'm sure.
No.
Was Marcielle living in Portland? Did she say she
No,
drove
she
from
didn't.
Portland?
she drove
They
long
lived-
distances with a lot of kids.
She
and
would
there's
drive.
a-
Marcielle,
Yes,
where
while
did
she
she
was driving.
Oh, I did the same
When we
thing.
lived in Silver Spring.
I never did
where-
that one, not while I was driving.
Huh? Do you know what happens when all of us girls get in the car and go to see Afton?
What?
We
Oh,
have,
dear.
we have
Are you sure you want to
Camellia
tell
up
that?
front and Marcielle up front and the rest of us in the back, and
I'm always in the very back.
Camellia starts to tell the
Always.
story, and then somebody else starts talking in the middle of it, and Camellia will say, "Can I just finish my story?"
It's called non-linear conversation. But I really did want to know where you were living when you
Portland.
drove to,
Camas, Washington.
you drove all the way across country?
I remember
who?
when she got there, and
Well-
I remember you telling us that you'd driven straight through.
Well-
And I remember thinking, no, you actually can't do that.
It's rough.
Apparently I was a
Because,
baby.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you
you
would've
can't
been.
see straight after a while.
That is so
After
terrifying.
and-
Oh my
And you
goodness.
can't tell if it's a hill or if it's a down.
So why did Dad want you to drive to Palmyra?
Why did you?
Because he falls asleep when he's driving.
Why did
He
you
thinks that's
drive
normal.
back
for
east,
heaven's
all the way
sakes.
across the country? Why did you do
Because I
that?
wanted to.
How many children
Okay,
did
so
you
I had
have?
Becky and,
James and me.
James and John and
Jamie and-
Rachel.
Rachel.
and John. No, John was the baby.
Where was Ken?
Rachel, he was,
So you had 4 kids. You
Yeah.
had Becky,
John and I are
Rachel,
18
Dawn,
months apart.
and
yeah,
Wait.
Ken stayed, he was, he was working, why did he have a summer job? Cause he had a job at the paper mill in Camas. Don't ever live by a paper mill. Ever.
They do stink.
Oh my gosh, the whole town smells, your clothes
Yeah.
smell.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the drive?
no, she slept through it.
Did you enjoy part of the drive?
So she and I drove
She had a
back
new
to
baby
Utah,
and me
and Ken
that
was in
bearing me.
Sandy, and
I
I
was
was
even
going.
2. So no.
Well, I would have been in South Carolina at that time.
Right, Ken was in Sandy, and I was going to go to Utah State, and she and I drove. She
That
did
was
most.
a different,
That was a different trip, but we had John, Rachel, Becky.
You must have had Aaron and.
No,
No,
they
one
were
of the
John.
babies.
John was the baby.
You
John
were
was
living
the
in
baby.
Sandy.
John
Well,
was the
now
baby.
the Sandy story, I'm confused. I'm not sure.
You stayed with us for a summer, and then you and I drove back to Utah, and we got lost in Chicago.
Oh.
You were looking for Dennis because he was on his mission at the time.
So you two weren't dating at all then at that point, obviously.
No,
I kept asking, but we wouldn't.
Bryce has the same, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, whatever. That's not what
we
I.
got lost in Chicago, and we stopped, and someone told us, if you keep going down that street, you're not gonna come out alive. Do you remember that?
No,
You don't remember
I
that?
don't. But you know what? I think I turned the wheel over to you. I think you drove the whole way.
Well, maybe
I don't
not the
think
whole
I
way, but
drove hardly at all
Hey,
on
Marcielle,
that going home trip.
Were there freeways when you drove
The
across
freeway was
Sorry.
intermittent.
Highway 80.
30 and 80. 30 and then, you know, when you came to the end of 80,
30 would be quite
you
a bit
drove
south of 80.
on 30 through the towns, you know,
Two
just a
lanes.
normal old highway.
2-lane through.
And you know what?
through the-
Marcielle wasn't even 30 years old.
I thought we had an
Why were you?
intercontinental, I thought we had a Highway 80 coast to coast by then.
Well, not on our trip.
No, it was Route 66.
You didn't take Route 66.
Hey, Marcielle, when you went on this trip, did you plan on stopping and just sleeping at a rest stop or a motel or?
The one from Camas, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I did, when I got to Evanston, I pulled off at a camp, KOA or
Evanston?
something,
Wyoming.
Wyoming.
I know, but why did you go there?
She was headed back to Washington.
That's Highway
Well,
80.
because
She
you
wanted
hooked
to
up
see
to
her
Highway
mom and
80.
dad.
I don't
Highway
know, but I tried to sleep, the kids were sleeping, but I couldn't. I thought I heard people walking in the gravel, you know, alongside the
You
car.
were too nervous.
So I may have stayed there for an hour, but I couldn't do it. So I went as far as Des Moines, Iowa. And
Oh,
that's,
you can't drive all the way from Evanston to Des Moines in one day.
I drove there.
Can you do that?
However long it took her, she
Yeah,
did it.
however
You could
long.
do it.
And it was nighttime when I pulled off the freeway, decided to look for a motel. It was the wrong
Thank
part of
goodness.
town for sure,
Gee.
to pull off of the freeway.
Marcielle, I'm so glad you're here.
It seemed like there were crowds of guys of all colors.
All colors?
Yeah, all colors, everywhere along,
Rainbow color
but
the
I came to a motel but I had taken so much Excedrin and no-dose to stay awake by then that I couldn't get to sleep.
Wow.
I can't remember if I took a sleeping pill to
Good thing you were nursing babies.
Yeah.
Probably was.
I made it.
Okay.
We're
How
so
did you
glad.
ever get back to the west? Did you drive back the same?
I think that's when you and I.
You had to, you had your car out there. How had you gotten
Well, I
home?
don't know. I mean, she's
I
doing
mean,
strange
that
things.
car was
a
done.
Rambler.
You must have had Jamie when you came back.
Well, yeah.
So
That's
Jamie
when-
drove.
And,
Yes.
and
Now there's
Becky
John
and
was the-
Jamie and Rachel and John.
John was the baby.
That's
and
when Jamie
that's
fell
when-
out of the
Well, look who's
Volkswagen
here.
bus.
No,
Actually, I don't think
the wind blew
It had to
in.
be-
Yay, it's Annette!
Is that the, is that
Back
the
door
summer
open
that I
and the
found
boys
the
all
boat?
fell out on the road.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Was it-
falling? Was that in Virginia that you fell in?
fell in the pool in
That's how
Virginia.
Dad taught me how to throw,
Annette
swim,
brought me out
swim
of
in
the
the pool.
When I fell in the pool,
In Virginia.
she saved me.
What pool?
The one in
In
Virginia.
Virginia.
Oh, I can
Somebody was getting
I
married.
don't remember Virginia, but I'm sure I saved you because I saved Mary.
At other times.
It was Nancy and Danny that
Mary
were-
Lynn.
got
That was
married.
Mary Lynn, wasn't it? I think that was Mary Lynn.
girl.
I believe it was Mary Lynn. I have some memory of that, I think.
No, I was sitting on the edge of the pool and there was a ball floating
Okay.
in front of me.
And I guess it wasn't Mary Lynn.
Fell in. And I went up and down 3 times.
Well, that happened with Merribeth.
I just want you to know that when you share something, no one is supposed to tell you, no, it didn't happen that way, because it's your memory.
That's right.
You get to have your memory even if it's wrong.
Yeah, and most memories are.
Well, at least there's.
It's our own perception. That's the trouble. We
Here's
all-
Lynn. Yay! Here's Lynn.
Of what was happening is very different, right? Is that not true? I
Marcielle?
think that's very true.
What'd you say?
I said we're all raised by the same parents, but the perception of each situation we're all in can be perceived very differently by each person in the
Well,
room.
life was different back then.
I agree with that
How
too.
different was
I
my
agree
life
with
when
that
I
too.
was 10 years old?
I know.
Oh my goodness. I
So-
think about that all the time. We've got our phones in our pockets now.
I know.
We were
Isn't
lucky
that
if we
crazy?
had a phone on the wall.
Right?
Back then, one phone.
Is this story true? I have a memory of Mom saying, I don't know if you remember if this is true. I have a memory of Mom saying she remembered the first indoor toilet in her home. And that
I
she
remember
thought
the
it was
outdoor ones.
disgusting. That they would have a toilet in the
Inside
house.
the house?
Rather than just the outhouse. Is there anybody else ever remember Mom saying anything like
I was
this?
there.
Do you remember?
Not when she went to the toilet. but she told me.
You weren't in the toilet,
So
no.
did she tell us this at Pleasanton or something? I
Yeah,
just have
she
this
did.
memory of her saying
She
this.
did, and it was really wonderful because I could use it in my history classes to talk about
You could use the
how-
bathroom in your history class?
I would use this example in my history classes because
Perception of-
yeah, we look to the past and we're like, oh, I know how they felt.
No.
But who would
We
think?
don't.
Who would guess that somebody would look at that toilet and go, oh, no.
They're doing this in the house?
Yeah.
That's not okay.
But I sat there and when she was telling that, and it astounded me.
I just
So that's how come
I remember her telling that, and I've always remembered it.
Well, hang on, where were you sitting when you remember her telling the story?
I know where we were. I remember, I thought it was Pleasanton, but I don't remember where we were at. Do you remember where we were at? We could have been anywhere in that house.
Marcielle.
Who remembers at Grandma Chandler's house, the toilet with the tank up, way up there? And there was a long chain, when you pulled on that chain, the water came down.
Heavy gravity flush.
Huh?
Yeah, I've seen those before, but not at Grandma Chandler's.
I remember, well, there were holes in them.
That's why they weren't toilets. You stood in there and when you flushed it, the whole floor flooded.
There was a hole.
Yes.
So, Marcielle, it starts with a question. What year were you and Ken married?
Oh, you gotta hand her the paper now.
No. Here, no, this is how we'll do it.
Have two pieces.
Now we have a purple one. You get to answer.
Hush, Arden.
55.
1955.
This party.
Okay. Yeah.
You?
So,
What month and date?
Month and date. Why are you guys asking me this?
Mom, come on.
Okay,
It's
well-
okay. Just answer the question.
December 22nd?
Oh,
they came to our house in Castro Valley shortly after that.
Which is California.
I was 8 years old, and Marcielle
And you had that
and
wall
I.
heater.
Yes, and you leaned against the wall heater the whole time you were there.
I froze.
And you were
I still
so.
freeze. I'm still cold-blooded.
And we've been friends ever since, right?
Kinda.
And you. We've been acquaintances ever since, right?
You've known of each other.
And you took me to your family's home shortly after that. And that's when
And
we
where
all.
was that family home?
That's when we
And
all
our family
met.
home was where?
Where were you in 1955, 1966?
In Spokane.
Spokane.
He wasn't there
I
though.
was born in
Oh,
March
Spokane.
of that year.
No, I would have been there. I was 6 years old.
Yeah,
Were
you
you
were
there?
barely there, and Chad was even less
You guys are
barely.
that far apart? I guess
You,
Annette's in the
you were
middle.
there? You met
I
Nancy?
guess so.
I was 15 years old.
That's when I first met Nancy, and I met all of
No,
you who had been
no,
born
I
at
was
that
gonna say, you
time.
did
And
not
I
meet all of
remember
us.
you clearly.
I was there in spirit.
I remember you.
Yeah, I bet.
And
We were hanging around
remember-
already, weren't we? We were just
I
hanging
came-
I
around.
think you climbed the wall or something.
Just for calibration, I came from a family of 2 boys. That's it. That's all. And I came to your house, and I was so impressed. There was kids running everywhere, and they
And
were
we weren't
having
even
such
all
a
born
high
yet.
time. And you
Jaye,
and her
Nancy.
had their hands and feet against door jams, climbed up to the top of the door jam,
Yeah,
and were
it's always-
and were
Nancy?
looking down at me. And I had never seen such a thing. And so I said, Nancy, get down. You're my wife. And your dad came and said, out, out. Because young men had been coming to your house stealing girls for generations. And so I was out. There, end of story.
I remember climbing the door jam.
She has the yellow paper over here. Yellow paper. You
I have a purple one, but I don't know what it's for.
So you can
Purple one is for the respondent. If you're asking
If you're
questions.
gonna ask a question.
So our son David sent us a picture the other day, and Tylia, who just turned 6, has
And this is
2
David's
hands-
daughter?
Yeah.
David's daughter has 2 hands back here against the wall in the hallway, and her 2 feet up against the other side. I don't know how she got there.
Straight across.
Straight across, like a board. And she climbed up there on her own. She
Wow.
thought she was so smart.
Genetic.
That is
Well,
smart.
yeah, there must be some
He'd
genetics.
go
that in a
from my
door- is that a door
bedroom,
jam?
my bedroom, he'd go across the hall and he would go over to the stairs and then go up the stairs and then
Without ever
all
touching
on
the floor.
walls. He was good.
You can't climb on a wall.
That's why I was good at parkour, because I could do that.
I don't understand that story. How is she suspending herself?
It's between 2 walls.
She has her arms, she's back like this.
She did it like this. Her
She's
hands
all-
on the wall. She's laying on her back, and her feet are out like this, and
what
she's
are-
stuck in the hall.
What are her feet on?
The other side of
the
the other side of the hall.
Oh, she's in a hallway.
Yeah.
Does she have to have somebody get her down?
You got a picture.
Can you get her, do you have to get her down? Can
Just
she get
gotta-
herself
We wondered
down?
how she got down.
I was gonna say,
You
somebody
just have to
had
believe that
gotten her
gravity
down.
is your friend.
I'm pretty sure Aunt Betty.
No, I was just pointing out the number that's tall.
Her feet were here and her hands were there, except for she was probably smaller than I was.
Right.
Be sure the door is
So
closed
Danny, I
tight.
guess you understand this business about kids running every which way and in and out and up and down. Now,
I do.
you married her, and so
Now what?
that's what happened.
Let's see, where are we? We got as far as Marcielle.
Yeah. What kind of car did you drive across the country?
A Rambler once.
So you rambled across the country.
Yeah, we rambled.
She did it more than once.
And when we came back,
She did it more than
once.
we
Was
were
this
in
the
a
first time?
Dodge
Station wagon.
station wagon. I was
It
trying
was
to.
purple.
It was sort
What
of.
was the speed limit back then?
There wasn't one, probably.
I don't really know. 65 maybe? I don't know. What do you know? What do you know?
Mom, how many times did you drive across the country?
I
like
don't
that?
know. Not by myself. I did.
Twice.
I didn't
at
make a
least.
habit of it.
But like in the days before,
And now
did
my
you
kids
look
are
forward
threatening
to
to take my car keys away from me.
Oh,
All the driving I've done all these years.
buy her a Tesla and get her. Okay,
How about if we
okay,
get you a
okay.
self-driving
But
car?
did in the days before you went on these trips, were you excited? You thought I'm going to go for a big adventure, or was it kind of like, oh man, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to?
Yeah.
I don't know that it was either one, Chad. I'm pretty laid back, actually. I don't look for adventure that much.
You don't. But you go on adventures. I mean, like, that's a major adventure.
I love
She loves
car
drive.
trips. What do you say? I do love to drive still. I'm having a little bit of less interest on freeways. I'm getting a little bit.
Freeways are scary.
I'm looking for surface streets, if I can do that, if I can do it, and not use freeway.
I think
I'm changing.
yeah.
We all are.
I think one of the things was Marcielle liked independence. She liked to be able to make that decision and go and do what it was that she liked to do.
And what about you? Did you like independence?
No, I didn't.
No, are you serious?
Do you like independence, Chad?
We're on Nancy.
Well, I'm trying to think. Jaye and I would load up that little Volkswagen bus and load up the taxi car with kids. Well,
Checker.
actually,
It was a checker
the
cab.
checker and the Renault, that little Renault too. But we would get a bunch of kids and we would. I drove to Baltimore for state dances. I both drove to Annapolis. I drove to Alexandria.
We drove to the beach.
We drove to the beach, but Jaye thought that I really liked to drive and I liked independence. So when I was tired and I wanted to trade off, he had no interest. He was in the back seat with all the girls.
I was gonna say, it was with the girls, I know it.
And we went out to Pennsylvania. I drove all the way to Pennsylvania to a ski resort. And I
Does
sprained,
this sound familiar or what?
I sprained my ankle.
To us?
And
Yeah,
it was swollen. And I said, Jaye, will you please drive home? No way. He was in the back seat with the girls all the way home.
Jaye, how do you feel about that?
I feel fine.
No guilt?
But Maureen, how do you feel about that?
I actually was incapacitated. There was no way I could escape from those
Yeah.
entanglements.
No way.
No,
Given all your brilliance and maneuvering and flexibility, you
no,
just
they
couldn't
had
get
me.
away.
I was locked
Okay,
in.
I'd like to offer a comment. As far as I know, officially, we've only gotten to Marcielle. And it's taken us an hour and a half to get there. And so, unless we change our protocol here, unless we change the protocol, we're not gonna get down.
This is
We're not
the
gonna get done.
virtue of non-linear discussion.
Okay, let me then.
Wasn't it for his wife?
Oh, that's right, she's gone. She only got me.
I will
You
update
have
my
the paper.
family.
Okay.
I have 4 kids. I have 11 grandkids.
No, you don't.
I have.
You have 11 granddaughters and 2 grandsons.
Oh, that's right. So.
It's not I, it's
One
we.
thing I want to understand is why it is that we have so many granddaughters and only 2 grandsons.
I get it.
What's that?
What
I
did you get?
totally get that.
All right, let's hear it.
I've got,
I have 8
He wants
granddaughters.
to know why.
Oh, I don't know.
There's some
It goes to
genetic-
the mill.
There's some genetic
I have 7
predisposition.
grandsons.
It's your.
I've got 6
My
girls and
whole
one
name
boy.
is Jaye.
Yeah,
Of course
there you go.
That's right.
There is no fault to be had.
Hey, biology. One's
Granddaughter.
for
Your generosity.
faster than another.
Oh, let's not get graphic.
Jay, I can tell you
with
that,
us, it's there.
Jay, I can tell you that the population here in this facility is about 20 women to 1 man.
Yeah, that's because of the.
Now,
That's
I-
attrition.
And I know why that is. That's because women outlive their husbands.
Yes, they do.
They work them to death and then they
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, you better, you
Very high
better women in this
probability that
room.
Maureen will outlive me by 20
on that
years.
last.
I was trying to think of a way to say that.
Tread carefully, Terry.
There is no way.
Anyway, Maureen and I are both retired and I drive a
It's
school
not
bus.
true.
That's all you need to know.
Why are you Sister Compton, Cynthia?
I know some of this.
Oh, Sister Ward, that's right.
so that's a bigger question. Why are you Sister Ward?
Do you know, one time, Maureen and I were in an institute class once together, and I answered for Sister Compton. For the Bassett looked at me like, wait, what?
Did you know you were related?
Did he know we were related?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't hit me.
It was in
Yeah, I looked up after reading the scripture, and he looked like he was just gonna die laughing, and I'm like, what just happened? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not Sister Compton anymore.
Well, I had something happen in Colfax, North Carolina. Do you remember singing in church, Nancy?
Just you and I, or?
You and I singing together.
Church.
Huh?
You and I sing in church.
Well, I remember singing with Nancy. I don't remember singing with
Oh,
you.
dear.
We sang "We're at Home."
Okay.
From the middle child.
But we were supposed to sing, and I'm trying to remember if it was maybe someone's farewell, like maybe Bruce going on a mission. But we were both up there on the stand, and when I don't know who opened the meeting, maybe it was the bishop, and I thought I heard him say that Brother Compton will give us the opening prayer after we have our hymn, our opening hymn. And so I jumped up and went up there, and apparently the guy who was really supposed to give the opening prayer was walking up the aisle toward the podium while I was up there giving the opening prayer. And it wasn't until after the meeting was over that I found out that I had supplanted him somehow. And I had not only sung the song that you and I were supposed to sing, but I had also given the opening prayer.
You were just a busybody.
You don't remember singing with Jaye?
Not
How
that
did you
time.
forget that?
Not that time, but.
Can't you sing with me?
I don't understand that either.
Okay, why did the
Do
three
you
of you
remember
sing
singing at
now?
Bruce's farewell?
A
Did you
trio.
sing at Bruce's farewell?
No, she
Oh,
would
well,
have been
then-
quite, she would have been very young.
Not that young.
My experience in Colfax was that I was asked to speak at a district conference because we weren't a state, we were a district. And Dad helped me
Ooh,
come
I
up with
remember
a talk.
this. I remember
And
this.
it was the first time in my life that my mind, I see words in my mind, I see pictures in my mind when I'm talking. That was a.
Chad, I got it. They're gonna do a basic stuff right there. Danny, if you move in, we'll get that other door.
Yeah. She didn't fake.
Keep going. You see pictures, you see words.
And I was giving my talk.
Hey, let Nancy tell this story.
I was giving my talk and there was a prophet's name that I was supposed to remember.
mine.
Okay.
And my mind just went totally blank. And I said, well, anyway, he became a prophet and I finished my talk. It was Brigham Young. I could not remember his name. It was just blank.
You know what my experience with that talk was? That you practiced that talk so many times at home that I had memorized it. So I knew your talk backwards and forwards.
So why didn't you come up to the podium?
I was right there. I was a deacon. I was on the front row because I was a deacon to pass the sacrament. And when I saw you freeze, I thought, should I tell her? Should I holler out the word? I was going to try and help you.
Like Dad had done for you.
But there was nothing I could do. I saw that deer in the headlights look in your face, and I thought, oh,
Dear.
that's
How old were you?
I was 11.
How could you be
You
11?
were a deacon. You had to be older.
No, I was.
You
I
had
was
to be
in
older.
Colfax. We still lived in Greensboro.
Oh, we were still in Greensboro then? I could have been younger. Yeah.
I think you were younger.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was 11.
I have a story to tell about Dad. I have a piece of paper.
That's the wrong color.
I had to give a talk in sacrament meeting in Silver Spring. And I worked really hard on it. Dad worked with me on it. I had it all written out. And as we walked into the chapel, I was a deacon. Walked into the chapel, I had it in my suit coat pocket. And
let
he
you get away
reached
with
in.
taking it in that church?
He reached in and took it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
my paper
Yeah.
from me,
That's bad.
and said, just go tell them what you got on your mind.
Yeah.
And I so that was my security, the piece of paper. I knew my talk, but I
Did you do it?
Oh, you
I
gave
can't
the talk.
remember what actually happened, but I didn't have the piece of paper when I went
Right.
up there.
Afton tried that same thing.
What?
She tried to walk up there with the piece of paper in her hand, and he took it away from her.
I didn't have it in my hand. I had it in my pocket,
Well,
in my
yeah.
coat.
He took.
Like
She had it in her hand.
Gumbo with the feather.
What did Arden do?
She was panicked, but I'm sure she gave the talk. But I remember in Silver Spring, and I was getting ready to give a talk, and Dad was helping me, And then finally he said, "Now, I don't want you to give it the way I've given it to you. I want you to tell it the way how you feel about it."
Yeah.
And he said, "If you can't talk about it the way that it affects you and the way you feel about it, then nobody's going to understand what you're talking about."
Yeah, do you think is that throwing a young person in over their head, or is that just the right thing to do? I was asking Nancy, what do you think?
I felt severe anxiety.
Hey,
Dad.
I asked Nancy, where's my piece of paper?
It went over to Annette.
Okay, no, what do you think?
Well, that's the only thing I knew. Anytime, and in fact, I was asked to give a talk for Mother's Day when we lived in Silver Spring. We were living on Pennsylvania Drive on that hill in Tacoma, and Dad gave me some suggestions, and I just didn't feel good about them. So I sat down and I worked and finally came up with what I wanted to say, but it was just the way it was. So I never thought, this is more than I can stand, or it was always the way it was.
But I one-upped him on that.
You what?
I one-upped Dad on that. When I was baptized, the bishop at the baptism, and Terry, you baptized me, but at the baptism, the bishop said, would you get up and give a talk in sacrament meeting about your baptism? And so I decided, okay, this is just for me, and I'm not going to even tell Mom and Dad about it or anybody else.
Wow.
And I'm just going to get up and give that talk all by myself. So I did. On Sunday, rather than sitting with the family, I went up and sat up in front, and I remember them looking at me like,
What in the world?
"What are you doing up there?" And then I got up and gave my talk, which Dad never let me write a talk, and he never wrote a talk for me. He said, "You speak from your heart, and you listen to the Spirit while you're up there, and that's how you give talks." And so that was my formula that I used that throughout my whole life. But when I was 8 years old, I already had that down.
Was that in Columbia, South Carolina?
Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
What Dad used to do when we lived in Toppenish, so it'll only be Terry and me, might remember that he just, he was the branch president at first, and then he was the bishop when we became a ward. He'd call on us kids, impromptu, in sacrament meeting, to come up and give a talk.
That sounds just like him.
Yeah,
And you did it too, didn't you?
I don't know.
Eventually, he told me, you can go up there with notes, but you can't go up there with the whole talk.
Do you know what? This is still how I give talks. I remember having a lot of anxiety about Dad and the way he pressured me to give talks, but I can't write a talk. I have to make notes and give a talk.
What do your notes look like? Are they full sentences?
No,
Are they key words?
they're words.
Keywords.
Like an
Bullet
example,
points.
You just write.
Yeah, I can't write a lesson out. I can't write out a talk. I can't. I've tried.
And
And it makes
how do
me
you
crazy.
control the time? How do you make sure you don't go over
I don't know, but it
time?
always works.
Chad.
I have no
It doesn't
idea.
always
They haven't kicked her out yet.
Yeah,
I just-
that's true. And somebody might have thought of it.
Okay, Terry wants Annette to share.
Okay, Annette, it's Annette's turn.
And when it's Annette's turn, I'm married to Lynn.
All right.
All right, moving on then.
And our elder and sister ward from Boise, Idaho, serving in records preservation, which means that when you get on
Yeah.
Family Search, you are looking at the things we've been working on.
And now you
Cool.
know what your job is, because when you left, you weren't sure what
Oh
your
yeah,
job
in
was.
fact, we got an email from somebody who was in the MTC with some friends in Boise, and they said, "Oh, then we have elders and sister in our ward, and they serve in records preservation." Blah blah blah. So we had to write, encourage them and tell them that it would be okay after a month or 2 or 3 or whatever.
How long have you been there now?
We're going on 7 months.
How can that be? It went fast.
And you're 18-month people.
Yeah. So in 2 months we'll be halfway done.
And are you using Chat GPT or Bard yet?
She doesn't know what. It's
Apparently not.
It's pretty cool. You should
They're
look
trying
it
to
up.
move from something to Google.
It's AI stuff.
How does it handle right and wrong?
They are doing a lot of
Good,
AI
bad.
stuff.
No, I read an article recently about using AI to Was it you who told me about it?
Yeah, they're using computers to read records, and the human beings go and kind of see how close the computers were, and it's cut down.
That's reinforcement learning, deep neural networks.
There's a mission in Salt Lake, and that's what they do. They're teaching the computers to read.
That's very cool.
Then-
That'll be
They do an amazing job.
billion times increase in
It's really
productivity.
amazing.
They've said that
At least I've been amazed when I saw the
Until
1950
the
census
AI
and how
makes a
well
mistake.
computers.
And it's a billion
They're able
times
to decipher
effort
the
to unwind the mistake it
cursings.
makes.
And the younger missionaries these days, they don't learn cursive in
Well,
school.
They can't read it.
AI
That's
has
one
to
of the
use.
first questions
This
we
thing at
ask.
work, the young secretaries cannot read my writing.
Hey, listen, AI has to use inputs of some kind to develop its intelligence and develop its abilities. And to my knowledge, it does not have the ability to reason through and imagine things from that input, that it's only able to regurgitate, organize, and bring the information together that way.
Can't
So,
create anything original.
when you're talking about anything of real value, like the value of something in your life, you can't ask the AI, is it good or bad for me to do X, Y, Z? Without there being bias in it according to who wrote the algorithms and what weight they gave to various things, because there has to be some weighting. Now, they may develop weight on their own based on what they read, but AI, like a human being, is somewhat dependent upon its environment and what it's given, its inputs.
Yeah, just like a human being.
To a certain degree.
Gave up very easy on that one, Chad.
It's different.
The immediate thing that came to my mind was square dancing on Tuesday.
Now, what granddaughter is it now that's going to Italy with the
Haley is going to Italy to do tap dance with the group.
Oh, she is?
Yeah, she's a TA for a tap
that's
class at
cool.
BYUI, and they've asked her to go to Italy.
Who's that?
Haley,
It's April's daughter, Haley.
Oh,
So
we
she's-
saw them at the women's conference.
That's right, we saw you, and we just saw them today.
So
That's cool.
one of the fun things is working with these young missionaries that, for one reason or another, they can't.
Young service.
Young service missionaries can't serve a regular full-time mission, and most of them have some form of autism or something like that. And you know, they're pure spirits, but we really enjoy them, and it's really kind of funny sometimes. Some of their quirky things, like one of them always, before he went home, he'd say, "Now, before you leave, be sure to shut off the lights and lock the door." And so we used to, you think he's gonna say it this time?
I mean, he would get almost out and then he'd turn around and go, "Oh, before you leave, be sure you turn out the lights and lock the door."
A little bit OCD.
And we thought maybe, you know, something his parents, you know, but we met his mother and she said, "I don't know where you got that." So, but anyway, they are a joy to work with and have some interesting characteristics and add another dimension to our work.
And then the senior missionaries that we work with are really fun also.
They're
But
wonderful people.
But we only have 4 of us two and another couple who actually
4
serve
people.
full-time as a full-time mission. All the rest are like 16 hours a week, or the young service missionaries are usually about 8 hours a week. And then so it's a fun environment, and
We know we're doing good work.
we enjoy
That's
it.
just what keeps me going.
Do you guys go to?
I have a thing that says I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I really needed that the first few months. It was hard. It was really hard for me. It was hard to feel so incompetent, so inadequate with computers all day. It was hard to be sitting all day. It's still hard, and those things are still hard, but because nothing about it is natural for me. It's not a natural environment. I have a real grown appreciation for what our regular full-time missionaries do. I mean, to try to stay focused 24/7. I mean, I need that Tuesday night because, you know, it's like I need something else, something active, something physical, something, you know, and it's social, and we wear our tags, and you know, we get questions and we ask questions, and it's interesting. Yeah, most of the time we're tags. But no, I mean, the best thing about it is knowing that we are contributing to the Lord's work, that we are making a difference, you know, one individual at a time. And you can't imagine the projects that we do have that are just mind-blowing, you know. So I'm working on probates. I don't do the complicated things too much because I'm still developing a relationship with computers. And so with this, I am dividing. I get a line of numbers. Anyway, they're files of probates. Right now we're doing Wisconsin. And so I divide it up and put in the metadata, you know, their names and the file number and things like that. And then, you know, we start a new one and do it and start a new one. But, you know, those records that I'm working on right now go straight to Family Search. They go straight to Family Search. And so as soon as we finish a batch, you can access them. If you have missionaries ancestors somewhere, and I come across names, familiar names, and who knows who they belong to. I mean, names of people. In fact, I came across one of somebody in our ward up there, and so I wrote it down and showed it to her. She says, "Yeah, that's us," but you know, she didn't need it, but who knows who needs it. And some of the information on probate records can be really varied and interesting. I mean, some people will have.
What is a probate record?
Probate is when someone dies, and then it can include their will, it includes their property and how it is dispersed, and so you find out they have no relatives, you find out that they were a child, you know, orphans are all over the place, it's so sad. And these are like in the 1830s to early 1900s, tuberculosis, people were put into hospitals because they couldn't afford to, you know, to take care of themselves or anything, and so the state was taking over, and so those are like guardianship records, probate records, all those things. But what's fascinating to me is that they are immediately accessible. That is something a patron on Family Search can find their name like that. And we have done, you know, just in the past few months, I can't remember, I could look it up on my phone, how many names we have contributed to that already. And so there's a great satisfaction in there. And then we're doing, let me tell you about the Places program. I mean, you just can't believe the enormity of the program of dividing up the country into states, into counties, into cities, into townships, into hamlets, and finding original establishment dates. Original shouldn't have been it, but like the first establishment date and alternate names of the city, so that when a patron goes to do research, half of it's been done. If you know your family lived here, and at approximately this time, then you know what city to look for. And that, it's kind of a complicated, it's a research project, and like a history research project, and it's pretty fascinating. It just has too many components for my ADD mind to keep straight at the same time yet. But
anyway, there's lots of things to work on, so you don't need to get bored out doing the same thing all the time.
yeah, it's not typical indexing generally.
So it's kind of, it's fun in that way, and it's yeah, it feels really good. You're not answering to you know, somebody that's paying your wage or something like that, and
You don't get
just
paid.
fun. We get paid.
Oh, okay.
You know, when you look at those cards and you go and do names, then you look at those names on the card, you realize that the names that you were typing out that day are on somebody's card, or going to be on somebody's card, going to them. And so it is an individual one by one, you know, a thing, you know, there might be several names on that probate, but those those names are gonna be entered one by one into Family Search and looked up and found one by one in Family Search. And so yesterday we did nearly 40 baptisms with our grandkids. And so
Thank you.
Look
Thank
for
you.
initiatory to
And they were
be
all
coming up.
leaders.
They were all except for one.
All except for one.
We had a sister who
From
said,
Nancy's
yeah, because we don't use off my list yet, because I haven't done good enough at it.
That's great.
Oh,
Hey, what mission meetings do you go to?
Well, occasionally we'll go to the zone meetings.
Zone conference.
We're invited to all of them that we want to come to. We're kind of, you know, the mission president himself, you know, he has so much to do with
He doesn't
these
have anything to
elders
do
and
with
everything
us.
else. He doesn't really interface with us very much. And,
Only to tell us if we can and can't come home.
we do have to have him, yeah, we have to ask him to go outside.
You don't go into the office on Saturday or Sunday?
They're
We have a
independent
vacuum to
contractors.
return.
We hardly ever go to we don't go do anything regularly with the mission.
We have missionaries that live across the way from us, and we, you know, interact occasionally with them when we see them, or have a
The
little bit of dinner.
missionaries.
We have a couple of people that are somewhat interested in the church. One is through our square dancing, which totally justifies it. I figured since it's, you know, if I were going to the gym every day, it's the same thing. So,
I think you should go square dancing. I think it's great.
mission president doesn't know we do it. We're not
I
gonna say.
remember when Mark,
It won't hurt him. He doesn't know.
But,
Hey,
but-
it's the principle now. It's not rules, principles.
Yeah,
we learn
if it's
principles.
if it's
So-
helping you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, then do
definitely
it.
helps me mentally and emotionally, although I do need to take caffeine tablets.
But maybe you're just dancing around the rules.
Sometimes so.
I remember when Marcielle picked me up at the airport.
You had a green suit when you went on your mission.
You bought that suit.
I remember that. I took you to Salt Lake, to, I think, what was that store?
Oh,
Not Deseret Industries.
Mr. Mack.
No.
ZCMI.
CCMI. And you tried on suits and.
I kept that suit my whole mission, and Cynthia can tell you it was in rags when I got home. But what I was going to say is you picked me up at the airport on one occasion for something, and all you wanted to talk about was square dancing. That you and Ken had started square dancing.
Well, that's funny. But I want to talk about it. We did. And I even made a, you know, bouffant skirt and slip and
Totally.
and everything.
No, he
But
and I
we
talked more
didn't,
than
we
we
didn't
said
do
all
that
of
for very long. And I'll tell you a reason, it's kind of silly, but Ken and all of his boys and maybe daughters, they perspire. Easily, their head, you know, everything. Come on, what is this? Thank you.
They're not your daughters, they're his.
Well, it's not my fault, it's his fault. And square dancing, well, you know, his arm was so wet. I was embarrassed for the ladies.
Who wants to talk? Somebody
Well,
wants
let's
to
talk about the fact that you had so much fun that you would start crying.
Hey, folks, Arden is the next one to have the.
Okay. She knows how to run a phone, or a camera, or whatever. It's almost anything but a phone.
You want the time called out as you go?
Yeah, please do. No.
10 seconds.
11 seconds, 12 seconds,
So-
13,
You only have 2
14.
kids left at home?
No, but these are the two that came with us today. Alice had to work. And Charla went to a reptile expo. Anne lives about 3 houses away, and she's expecting a baby in July 25th. Yes, and
Finally gonna be grandparents.
Yeah, welcome, Grandma and Grandpa.
and our daughter Abigail lives with Cheryl's mom over in Hiram, 25 minutes away, with her husband Jackson. And Peter is in Orem, and actually right now Peter and Abigail and Jackson and Peter's date are down in St. George for the weekend.
Is it the girl that came to Cynthia's house?
No.
No. Okay. Different one. I'm curious.
It's actually a girl he was dating before that, and then he and the girl he brought to Cynthia's house. I'm not sure if anything's ever gonna. What? Who gave Cori the camera? Cori
me.
Cori has an amazing talent, and that is to take the strangest photos of people.
Oh no.
Yeah, like she'll
And
get
she-
you right before they sneeze or things like that, like the rare.
And it is amazing. The collect, and she keeps them. I mean, this is her collection. The ones that I would delete. She's no, I want that one.
Giving Chad ears.
No.
She also when she wants to be, then she's a really good photographer. Like I've seen some of the
That's
pictures that she does.
true. So, and we are living in Brigham City, and life is good. And
Oh look. We can see people now.
I do remember going to the Palmyra pageant, going way back to that conversation an hour and a half ago. The only memory I have of the Palmyra pageant, I don't remember if we lived in Spencerville or Virginia. I don't remember where we lived, but I just remember lights up on the hill and needing to go to the bathroom and walking through car after car after car, trying to find the bathroom.
I went to the
That's-
Palmyra pageant once, and
That's-
I just remember my cousin popping a whole bunch of caffeine pills as he was driving. That's all I remember.
So, are there any? So I could stop there.
Arden, do you actually have a memory of diving through the storm door window?
I don't remember going through the window. I do remember running up to the window.
But you actually don't remember going through it, huh?
No, I remember.
And you don't
I remember the
remember
blood.
afterward? Actually,
I
you
do-
fainted on the way to the hospital. So
I do remember I remember running towards the door because there was an ambulance outside and Alden and I were running around and we wanted to, I remember running by the table. There was an ambulance going
going
by.
by.
That was why we were running to the door, was because we heard an ambulance and we wanted to see the ambulance.
I thought you were chasing each other.
Well, we probably were doing that
You
beforehand.
were chasing the, well, actually, I can't say that because I was asleep.
Right. In
And
case,
I heard the screams, and that's what woke me up.
so I do
Wasn't
remember.
Austin the one that came up the stairs or something and you had to?
I remember the mom was sitting in the kitchen table to the left of the door. We found a picture recently of that table, Dad sitting at that table and the door there, and I knew it. That's exactly the door that I ran through.
Well, you weren't there. You weren't there.
Remember when Jaye fell
You weren't there.
down the stairs?
Yes.
The neighbor's house.
I think
And
that
I
was
was past due.
I was there.
I was out there.
Annette was there.
So, any case,
Wait,
all
wait.
right.
I was
Okay.
there too,
The
Annette.
middle child,
So-
Annette was there. I saw it
What
all.
do you remember?
Do you
No,
see it
wait.
really? Did you see the whole thing happen?
Yeah, I
I was
did.
talking. Did you
Quiet,
really?
quiet. I want to hear what Annette
Well, he
remembered.
went through and got hung up on the door.
Where were you when
Pointy
the?
piece of glass and his arm, it went through this side and out this side and.
Where were you when you heard the glass break?
Between the
know,
kitchen
right?
and the.
He had some pretty
and
rough
the front
ones.
door.
Yeah.
I don't know if I came over and took
Do
him off.
you remember going over and looking at his arm?
I remember telling Mother how to control the blood.
Oh, wow.
Cause I mean, it was junior high, first aid.
Okay.
And it
She-
was
she
kind
tried.
of pumping out, and so I said, take it and press on it. And what Mother ended up doing was holding his arm tight like this, which had the same effect
Yeah.
of cutting off that blood circulation.
Where were you, Larita?
I remember.
I was too little, Chad. What would I have been, Artie? Would I have been three?
You might have been born. I don't know.
I was born. I think I was about
Best
three.
version of what
I have vague memories of it. There's just almost an impression of all the
Can we-
panic and all the sets. And I
Arden.
was running with him.
I have Merrill shoes as well.
Hey, Arden.
Yes, he was.
Okay. All right, Jay. Where you were asleep?
I was asleep, I heard the screams, and they were unearthly screams.
Who was screaming?
It was Afton. Afton. And so I jumped out of bed. I lived downstairs. I made myself a cave downstairs. I didn't actually have a bedroom, but we did have a kind of a utility room downstairs where the furnace was, and that's where I lived.
And he had a
And so-
radio, and he listened to music that Dad would turn on when we got in the car.
Dad did that when I was a kid too. If he got in the car and there was music on, he'd get like, he'd turn it off.
So I heard the screams and I didn't even put on clothes. I ran upstairs in my underwear and I ran to the kitchen door and saw Artie on the carport concrete with the glass stuck through his arm. So it was a triangle. And it stuck through, and then the narrow piece was up here. And I knew that that was
Not
really
good.
serious.
Any moment
Outside
now, I just don't know if I
and
ever
got
can.
the checker limousine started and helped Mom get Artie into the back seat.
Was the glass, you kept the glass in?
Oh, yeah.
No,
No.
no,
You
no,
did? Pull it
no, the
out.
glass got pulled out.
It
And
did?
that was,
I thought it was-
that was the problem.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you
The
should've-
glass should have stayed in there because as soon as the glass got pulled out, he started gushing. He was bleeding out.
He only had.
So, I took off, I was gonna drive
thought
to
they
Silver,
lifted me
I was
off
gonna
of it.
drive to the hospital in Silver Spring,
know for sure.
which
That's-
probably would have been at least 20-25 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
can't believe you
because that's why I
survived.
had John.
And I got down the
Already had
road,
guardian angel that day.
maybe, I don't know, maybe
Should've
2 or
lived.
3 miles, and I'm watching
Yeah.
Mom in the back seat.
You weren't born yet, so.
I'm looking at her in the
Yeah.
rearview mirror, and I'm looking at Artie, and he's white as a ghost. And he's no longer screaming, and everything had gone limp. And I thought,
Did you faint?
Yeah.
he's not gonna make
Think I would
it.
remember if I fainted?
So I made a U-turn and shot back the other way, because I knew there was a fire station close to our house. Went back the other way, pulled in
So
at the fire
Annette and
station,
Jaye-
ran in and screaming and hollering, my
Grandma
brother's dying.
Saved Artie's life.
They come out and put a tourniquet on him, put him in the ambulance,
Well,
off to the
that
hospital.
was, so you guys all saved his life.
They said 2 or 3 minutes.
I did, so.
For Afton, who was on the floor, and went downstairs, and I said a prayer. And my prayer was, if Artie can live, I will try to be a good boy. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Nice drive.
That is much more true than you know.
No,
But I
thank
know
you.
what a tease you were with these younger brothers.
It's Artie's turn. Artie's waiting for you.
Father, what were you saying?
I don't think I was saying anything.
You said you had something to say. Just thank you, was that it? That was the end?
I don't remember.
Oh, it's a long time, huh?
How did you meet Cheryl?
Take the picture.
Oh. So the only thing I'm going to say about that whole thing is I do remember sitting in the backseat of the car, blood everywhere. Mom was there.
Isn't my turn yet, Jaye?
I have a vague memory of being put onto a stretcher at the ambulance place, and maybe that's just an artificial memory, but it seems like I remember being put onto a stretcher. And I remember going down a hallway on a stretcher in the hospital with Mom going along next to me. And then afterwards, lots of stitches. Like I would pluck them like guitar strings.
What do you remember about falling into the stairwell head first?
That I was running along and suddenly I was on the ground. And
That should have killed you too.
I almost think I had an out-of-body experience because I have a memory of seeing Marcielle running towards the stairs.
Well, I was.
But I was down at the bottom of the stairs.
I know.
But I have a memory of you running towards the stairs, which would have been
I was
a
out
different.
Possible.
I was
would-
out there calling you for dinner.
Artie, how many times have you
What town was this at? Where did we go?
Well, so another time I nearly died was when we lived in Virginia.
This one I didn't know.
And we were picking berries in the woods after school. And I don't remember, it was, for some reason, we stayed after school rather than going straight home, and Mom was gonna come pick us up later.
Is this in Virginia?
This is in Virginia. And somehow, I don't know exactly, somehow I disturbed a yellow jacket nest. I don't know if I stepped on it or bumped into it or what happened, but as I'm picking berries, suddenly I'm getting stung. And I remember there was Alden was there. I don't remember if you
I
would have
don't
been
think
there.
I don't.
See, there was another kid, Alden and some other kid, it seems like. And I just remember screaming, bees, there's bees. And I ran out of the woods as fast as I could, but there was yellow jackets all over my legs. And I had bee stings on my hand, just a couple on my hand and arms, but my legs had like over 100 bee stings on them.
Gosh, Artie.
And Mom raced me to the doctor, and I don't remember what happened, but
You lived.
I lived.
You lived. Can I ask a question?
What's that? Oh yes, and the Pleasanton accident.
The tree.
Wait, which tree? Oh,
The Cadillac
oh
and the
no,
tree.
that was a
Oh no, the other one.
that
Oh,
wasn't
no, the
life
other
threat.
one.
I didn't
I
even
have
get
the other one.
bruised when the Cadillac
No,
died.
you didn't, did you?
It was a Cadillac.
No, I landed on a stake.
Rebounder.
Yeah. And got stitched.
Yeah.
Got stitches.
We do not tell that story.
As Chad, you said you saved my life.
I
but
saved your life that day too.
You nearly killed me first.
No.
But I remember what Arden said, but part of it was that you
Let's
got
not
hurt.
talk about this, sir.
Did they take you to,
This is
Acupuncturist.
acupuncturist, or what do you call it? Right after you died, what, you
Right after you
We went to a chiropractor's
He's dead.
office.
Put some needles in him. Bring him back.
He said he couldn't help you, so then, I don't know if it was the hospital then, but I went in to see Artie, and he was so white that you could see each freckle highlighted. I mean, you looked like you had nothing, no blood in you, you were just so white. And I said to him, Chuck, plug your ears. Because it had just missed his rectum, where he landed, and I said to him, and I was like, Artie, you were so lucky. And he looked at me and he was like, if I'd been lucky, I wouldn't have landed on that pole. I thought, I guess that's true.
So that's twice in our family that a pole has almost killed one of us.
Who else?
So you with the rebounder and Afton with the boys camp flagpole.
Oh,
I don't know that one.
I
You
don't
guys
know.
don't, you don't know that story?
No, hey, let me finish
Go
my
ahead.
story.
Go ahead.
So what we were doing, I was on the rebounder, which is a little mini trampoline for
We
those
know
that
what a
don't.
rebounder
I know you know, but anyway, and at the time I was doing a dance play thing where I was doing Russian splits, where I would jump up, Russian split. I can't get close now, but I could touch my toes.
That's probably why I can't get close.
And so you jump up in the air and you touch, you reach out and you touch
that's
your
all
toes.
we need to know.
And so I would do down there, boom, and I could touch my toes in the air. And
Thank
Chad
you. Thank
said,
you.
"How many can you do?" So I twice touched my toes, but I'd go a third time, and I kept going off the edge of the trampoline, and he encouraged me
Chad.
to try again. And so I did it 3 times in a row, but so that I wouldn't go too far off one side, I went too far back the other side, and as I'm up in there in the air, I sat
Okay.
right on the pole.
Sorry about that.
Everybody's just cringing.
But, you
So
know,
how did they get you to the hospital? That pole still in you?
No, it just tore across my rear end, and then I fell on the ground. I remember biting the couch had a little piece of cloth that went from like
A little decoration.
I just remember
The fringe.
biting it and going, oh!
well, listen, I think I did encourage him, but this was the only time in the history of his life that he responded to any encouragement I gave him. And in the end, we are to act, not to be acted upon.
So Chad, have you been to counseling to help you?
Let me help you clear that trauma,
You
Chad.
know, it's hard in counseling to know which traumas you're really dealing with at any given moment in time, but yeah,
Well, I forgive you
thank you.
for whatever it's worth. There never had been any hard feelings at all, ever.
Hang on, I want to get a close up.
I forgive.
Papers, we can talk.
I had ruptured appendix.
No, actually, Chad would be the next one.
Well, just real quick,
No.
in my opinion, it was pure revelation that you got that turned you around to the fire station that saved his life.
Well,
Chad.
That's my opinion.
yeah, I
I don't have
Artie,
anything
you
else to
next.
say. Wait.
Oh, we are officially beyond our
yeah,
time.
we're beyond our time.
I don't think they're gonna run us out if we keep the doors closed. So now it's a matter of, do some of you have to leave right away?
Who has to leave?
Where would I go?
We were gonna leave right away, but
Where
we'll
would
stay
you
for a little
go?
bit longer.
We brought some shrimp and it's on the table,
What?
along with cocktail sauce, and you're welcome to it.
Oh,
Here,
Maggie,
Father,
tell us.
take the camera.
Corey's like, I'm going to go get the food.
I have a question.
So,
Oh.
I was going to tell how I met Cheryl. We haven't done that yet. Can I see me?
Here, I can do it. I'm really.
So, Cheryl and I, well, in a way it's kind of simple, but there's a few little fun things that happened. We met at church, just going to a student ward at BYU. I was living with Rachel. Thank you, Rachel, for letting me move into your basement. And Cheryl was living at some apartments called Queen Arms, and somehow we were in the same student ward. And we went to a rest home, maybe similar to this, as a service project. And we had already met, but we didn't know each other well. And at the rest home, at one point, we were doing things for these elderly folks, and they asked somebody, we were singing some songs. And one of the elderly people asked if we could sing the song Moon River. Okay? And it turns out Cheryl and I were the only ones that knew the song Moon River. We weren't standing next to each other. We were probably about
the room.
Probably roughly this far apart, maybe about the distance of me and Annette. And so we both sang the song Moon River, standing across the room from each other. It was just, I wish I could say at that moment I knew she was my wife, but I didn't. But, you know, got my attention. Oh, we both know the song Moon River. And somehow when the whole scenario, the whole event was over and we were kind of all heading, this large group of us, probably what, 20 of us or something like that?
That was a lot. That was like the whole ward.
Okay, maybe more than
It was a
20.
ward activity, so.
Anyway, there was a lot of kids.
Going
Maybe,
down narrow hall.
yeah, anyway, somehow she ended up in front of me and the line was moving slowly and I put my hands on her shoulders.
Just like my brother used to do.
And then she kind of hunched over like piggy. So anyway, I jumped on her back and she gave me a piggyback ride and she wasn't even sure who was behind her.
How inappropriate.
And she gave me a piggyback ride down the hallway. There's nothing inappropriate about it at all. It was,
It's
and
just, my brother always did that. It's my brace.
So that was your bonding.
anyway, so
He never got off.
there you go. And then we dated for a while, and
And Arden kept
And-
trying to break up with me.
Oh.
I was so naive. I didn't know he was trying to break up with me.
I'll just say I had a lot of mental blocks at this stage of my life. I was 29 years old. I'd been through so many relationships. I was,
Most of
and-
them came to my house.
yes, and saw a lot. And actually, the first time I actually asked her out on a date, because I swore I was not going to ask anybody out on a date because I was so sick and tired of breaking up with girls. I just thought if I date another girl, we're just going to break up. I don't want to go through that again. So if I don't ask anybody out, then I don't have to break up. And that was really my attitude at the time. But somebody else talked me into asking her out because they wanted to. Cheryl was roommates with two of her sisters, and somebody else in the ward said, "Hey, I want to go out with Mary Kay. Why don't you ask out Cheryl? We'll go out on a double date." I was like, "Oh, but if I ask her out, I really didn't want to ask her out because I did not want to break up with her." That's what to me, asking somebody out.
Get you out of my basement.
To me, asking somebody out and breaking up, it was going to be inevitable.
Rachel paid James and asked to tell you that.
But I did ask her out, and we had a good time, and we dated. But still, I just went back and forth because I just kept thinking breaking up is inevitable. I should just get it over with. Just because it always ends up in a breakup. I just got to get this over with. And so I almost broke up with her several times, but I never did. And then we went and chatted with our bishop one Sunday because I was really stressed about it. And he said, just relax for a week and don't even think about whether the relationship is good or bad or right or wrong. Just go have fun for a week. I was like, okay. So I tried for that week to not think about should I or shouldn't I date her or not, or is this right or is this wrong? I just tried to put that out of my mind. And we ended up going to a dance towards the end of that week. And we were actually in a room with a floor that was carpet somewhat similar. And see, if you're wearing socks on a carpeted floor, you can spin really easily. And
Yeah,
so
but if you're
I
wearing
did
tennis
so much spinning as I was dancing
He
that
took
I...
his shoes off because they didn't see.
Right, you can't spin in shoes, but you can spin in socks, right? So I took my shoes off and I'm dancing around, and guess what happened after all? I burned a hole in the bottom of my sock. I'm not kidding. And I got a big blister. I got a great big blister welt on the bottom of my foot from spinning as I was dancing. And so,
that convinced you.
no, and so
he
because
needed to ride home.
so because of that, we left the dance and went to her apartment, and we're sitting there chatting on the couch, and I don't have any idea what we were talking about. And I thought, well, I keep trying to break up with her, but that doesn't work. And so, I don't know. The only thing I haven't tried is proposing, so maybe I should just try proposing.
Oh, Wow.
And so I just, so I just turned to her and I said, "So Cheryl, do you want to marry me?"
That's
And-
I don't know if I knew this, or I forgot.
I said,
Oh, my
yes! I was so excited, but he wasn't.
And then I was really excited for 30 seconds and I thought,
What have I done?
what did I do?
Here you are.
Anyway, it all worked out, and I am so glad I married her, and she is much.
I'm so glad you married her too.
Yeah, there you go.
I married someone so much more amazing than I was aware of at the time. I just was clueless as to what an amazing
I wasn't that amazing at the time. It took me a while.
I married way above me, much more than I thought or recognized at the time.
Now, I've decided that I've heard this conversation on our text messages.
Which conversation?
That you know, Chad married above him, you married above you, Jaye married
Oh, I
above
married
you.
above mine, yeah.
No,
We all did that.
No,
as
because we
far
all
as I
have
can
our
tell.
own gifts, and the people that we married would not be able to accomplish those gifts, those things, if they didn't have us. So don't say that anymore.
Yeah, so the
I'm
reason
going
why
to
you
keep
married
saying
above
that.
me is because you made me, it's your fault that we
Can't
love
say
you.
it.
No, I'm not above it, but you really made me what I am. It's interesting how
and-
the person you married really molds you.
You mold each other.
Yeah.
You mold
And
each other.
she stretched me in ways I didn't want to be stretched, but in the end, she's made me into somebody much better.
Me a little bit too.
Isn't this institution of marriage an amazing thing, because it does make us progress in ways that we wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to progress if we didn't have those
Well,
relationships.
Jay's marriage proposal was even less romantic than that.
Really? How'd you do that?
But there wasn't one.
And so is mine.
Well, we were driving to Salt Lake for a general conference in April of 1975, and Mary was gonna come with us, but at the last minute she couldn't. I'm driving my Camaro.
From the Bay Area to
Salt
They
Lake.
would have been in Los Altos
Stay
Hills.
with my Aunt Frida in Salt Lake, and I'm driving across the Nevada desert. I knew he napped before I married him. He napped 300 times a year. I napped 6 or 7 times a year. Anyway, he had, leaned over and was taking a nap, and I'm driving across the desert, and he sits up and said, if I had a job, I'd ask you to marry me. He worked in a car wash. I don't even know if he worked. I didn't have a job. You quit that job. You finished your mom's kitchen cabinets or something.
I was a ski bum.
Yeah, I
You
paid
lived
for
back in
some of
that
the
little
ski
bedroom,
trips, yeah.
in Los Altos Hills.
Say what you said back.
Well, I had a really good job. I worked at Stanford University, and I got 3 weeks vacation every year. And I said, well, if you had a job, we couldn't go on a honeymoon because you wouldn't get any vacation. And then we just kind of sat there and, what did we just say?
So there really never was a formal proposal.
You just both decided you
We
were gonna
just,
get married.
we just kept hanging out together until we got married.
And one day you wandered into the temple and, well, the sitting room's open.
Now? You say no.
All the above?
Okay, we can ask Terry any
Is
question we
anyone else
want.
wanting to eat shrimp?
Cori, we don't want to eat all of it, but.
Well, we tried. We tried. No one's coming over here. What's happening?
Okay, you can ask, Terry's on the hot seat now. Ask him any question you want.
Terry, how did
Maybe
you
Terry
propose
just
to
has
your
a story
wife?
he wants to share.
How did I propose to my wife?
The current one.
The current one.
How many sticks?
I'm suffering from dementia,
No,
That doesn't count.
so I might not be able to recall how I proposed to her.
we did
Well,
stop.
we want to hear the story anyway.
And then,
Oh, you
Just
do?
in time.
no, we stopped for.
Yeah, whatever you can remember.
We have to ask them if they want.
Well, this is my version of it. She's not here to tell her version of it.
That's all right.
My version of it is that we were dating, we weren't really dating in the sense of teenagers, but we went on rides to see scenic things that we both enjoyed seeing, and we were watching movies here. They had upstairs. They show movies up there, but now they show them here too. And so we were gathered together quite a bit. And so she decided that she wanted me to be her boyfriend and nobody else, no other women here could I have as a close romantic friend. And I said to her, well, I believe that sounds like marriage. When do you make a commitment like that other than in marriage?
Wow, that's bold. Quite a leap there, Terry.
Terry, did she use that terminology? Did she say boyfriend? She wanted
Yeah,
you
we
to be
used
her
the term.
boyfriend?
We did use the term boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm not saying we used it all the time, but we used it, and we had a lot of fun last summer driving around everywhere, sightseeing. And unfortunately, I can't do it this year because I got a sciatic nerve that won't let me drive for more than half an hour before it kills me. I haven't got a solution to that, and she really wants to go driving now that we can drive further. We had to go and come back the same day then. Now we could go and stay a while. But anyway, so I said, that sounds a lot like marriage to me. She said, oh no, I don't want to get married. She says, I'm 90 years old. I'm too old to get married. And my family won't like it. And she gave me a long list of reasons why she didn't want to marry her. And she says, I'm not against marrying you particular. I'm just against my marrying again. So this discussion went on for 6 months between us of, yeah, I want you to be my exclusive boyfriend and I'm your exclusive girlfriend, but I don't want to get married. I said, well, I can't sign up to that forever. I just don't have a disposition to have that kind of relationship. I would prefer marriage if that's what you want. So it took a long, long time before she finally decided she would marry me. And I think I announced it to the whole family as soon as I knew it. And then she was, publicly known to have agreed to marry me. And that was an important step, so she wouldn't be so inclined to back out.
What?
I just have to draw attention. They're singing Moon River to the elderly people.
Interesting.
You go along in life, and at some point along the way, you realize that you have a unique set of gifts or skills or something. At what point did you realize you were different than other people?
Or did you?
Let's see. Is this a gotcha question?
No.
Differences. And that I don't see the world the same way as the common ordinary person does. Not to say that I'm extraordinary, but I don't see things quite the same. I don't have that same perception of things.
Always been that way, Terry?
Well, that's what Chad is asking me. When did I figure that out?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of when I first came to that realization. I certainly came to that realization in church.
When you told the bus driver how to drive, in wherever that was.
I don't remember that. But in church, I would make comments in church. This was very late in my life, but if I made comments in church, I would be accused of teaching false doctrines. And so, I don't know if I should tell this or not, but anyway, we had 2 previous bishops and the current bishop learned that I had taught about the law of consecration and that we were obliged to live the law of consecration. So they got upset with me because they thought the law of tithing had supplanted the law of consecration. So they said they were going to go to stake president. I refused to renounce or say, no, I won't teach that or I don't believe it. And so they said they'd go to the stake president. So I said, well, let me get together a little defense of what I said and why I said it and so forth. So they gave me a little time and I put together something and they took it to the stake president. And the stake president told them that we do practice the law of consecration, whether they realize it or not. And so that was the time when at least those brethren realized that I did see things differently than some people. But I understand Chad also learned that we were to live the law of consecration fairly early in his life. Is that right, Chad? That's a law we live.
Not that I claim to understand what it means.
Yes.
But I understand that we should.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have been in the church. I am different because I've been accused multiple times of teaching false doctrine, and every time I write it out and give my reasons and so forth, and they take it to higher authority, it's never turned out that so far that I teach false doctrine. Now, the engineers that I worked with, I was not a typical engineer either, because many of the things that they found easy, that they just go right through, I found very difficult. So I'd get them to help me with those things. But the things that they found difficult, that they couldn't even solve, I found somewhat easier. Although the paper that I worked on for 15 years, it wasn't full-time 15 years, it was just, I was thinking about it off and on for 15 years. They eventually won me an award for the best paper of the year for 1 year. But that paper is the kind of thing that they would not, none of those engineers would have ever thought of what I wrote and so forth. And so, I don't know, it's just a different way of looking at the world.
Well, it's interesting, you can think outside the box in engineering or something like that, and they give you awards. You think outside the box.
Well, they don't give you the award at first, I'll tell you that. You have to get them to give you permission to write about it or to spend the time necessary to work through the problem. And they don't just give everybody that permission. But interesting enough, I went to a meeting where someone was teaching us about a new technique for quality assurance, how to get products to have higher quality. And in the meeting, I sat there and listened to the guy talking about it, and I thought, wow, this is something that I would like to do. And so after the meeting, I went up to him and I asked him, well, would you like to have somebody work with you on this project? He said, yeah. So I said, well, I'll see if my supervisor will allow me to spend the time on it. And he needed to get permission as well. So we both got permission to spend some time on it.
Who are you working for? Who was your employer?
At the time, it was Delphi or GM. I'm not sure, because GM spun off Delphi.
Okay, all right.
So it was either GM or Delphi. But anyway, we both got permission. And so we started working on the project, and he wanted to do one thing and I wanted to do another. That is, we wanted to solve, he was a electrical engineer and I was a software engineer, so we didn't have exactly the same problem to solve. But I persuaded him to do the problem I was trying to solve. So we pursued that. But anyway, he kept trying to persuade me to give up on what I was trying to do. And I kept on pursuing it. And I don't know where he got with with what he was trying to do, but one day, I just got results that showed that there was a promise to head the direction I was. So when I got to that point, he not only agreed to go that direction, but people that I never heard of before wanted to join the project. As you can imagine, if they think you got something interesting, everybody wants to be part of the project.
It's called bandwagon.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon
Yeah.
as soon as you got a winner.
Well, anyway, I didn't let any of them jump on the bandwagon. Maybe I was mean or something, I don't know. But one guy claimed that he helped us and deserved a lot of the credit. Well, I never saw him before he came in and wanted credit. So I didn't know. But anyway, that's just the notion that the typical engineer would not solve that problem. And I have a different view of things, and so I solve problems that other people find very difficult, and I find problems that they found easy. I found some of those difficult.
Did you ever have?
And I thought about why. Why is it that way? Why can't I solve the easy problems? And I just determined it's because they don't interest me. That had to be the reason. I can't think of any other. Go ahead, Chad.
Did you ever have the experience of working on a problem and just really focusing on it, and kind of hours and hours went by before you realized it? I have a memory of you doing this.
Well, the answer is I spent a lot of time on this and a lot of time not getting good results. I mean, it took me a long time. I'm talking about months. But actually, this one project I started 15 years earlier than when I finally come up with a solution of it. But I just kept my mind on it, not full-time, but part-time, from the time that I first got the idea.
Did you have an office down at University in Provo at one time?
At BYU, I did. Oh, yes, I had my own business down there. Yeah.
I needed to borrow.
Yeah, they're trying to.
All right, we're gonna have to break up. Nancy and Denny are
Oh, you can't leave.
having to leave.